Did you ever wonder how many awkward ads from the 1980s made it onto television without anyone asking if this was really a good idea? These ads shaped what families saw between their favorite shows, selling products with approaches that feel impossible today. So what were they thinking? Cigarette commercials featuring doctors endorsing smoking still echoed through the early 1980s, even though television had banned them years earlier. Print ads and legacy campaigns kept the imagery alive in magazines and family conversations. People remembered white-coated professionals explaining how certain brands were smoother on the throat or recommended by medical experts. The trust those ads built lasted far longer than the ads themselves. Families had framed photos of grandparents puffing away beside doctors who handed out cigarettes like candy. What made it so awkward was how completely the medical profession had reversed course. By the 80s, those same white coats were warning patients about lung cancer and emphysema, yet older advertisements still floated around flea markets and yellowed magazine stacks. Children flipping through their parents' old collections stumbled upon images of smiling physicians beside cigarette packs, creating a strange disconnect between health class lessons and what adults once believed. It is almost surreal to realize the same authority figure telling families to quit once helped convince them to start. Weight loss candy bars promising eat-all-you-want results were marketed with enthusiasm that made desperate dieters believe they had found the secret to easy slimming. These products appeared in magazine ads and late-night television, featuring slim models biting into chocolate-coated bars with pure satisfaction. The pitch was simple. Eat these treats instead of meals and watch pounds melt away without suffering through salads or exercise. Parents who struggled with weight stocked pantries with these bars, trusting that something sweet could make dieting painless. Children watched mothers unwrap bar after bar, believing the packaging knew something nutritionists did not. The ingredients told a different story, packed with laxatives, stimulants, or appetite suppressants nobody fully explained. People experienced jittery afternoons, sleepless nights, and digestive disasters never mentioned in cheerful advertisements. When regulators examined claims, they found exaggerations so wild that entire product lines vanished from shelves overnight. It is uncomfortable now to think how many people trusted these bars with their health, believing indulgence and weight loss could share the same shiny wrapper. Children's cereal ads with absurdly sugary health claims filled Saturday morning television with colorful mascots promising breakfast could be both delicious and good for you. Animated rabbits, tigers, and leprechauns danced across screens while voiceovers declared frosted, chocolate-coated, or marshmallow-studded cereal was part of a complete breakfast. Parents trusted claims wrapped in the language of vitamins and fortified nutrition. Kids begged for boxes featuring favorite cartoon characters, believing something so fun must be healthy. The truth hiding behind those bright packages was sugar content rivaling dessert, combined with artificial colors that would later raise serious concerns. Advertisements showed children bouncing with energy after eating, implying the sugar rush was wholesome fuel for growing bodies. When nutritionists pushed back and regulators demanded honest labeling, many claims quietly disappeared. But the memory of believing candy disguised as cereal was smart breakfast lingers awkwardly for anyone who grew up trusting those animated mascots. Looking back, it is strange how easily a dancing cartoon could override every instinct about what belonged in a healthy morning meal. Tanning bed ads promoting safe indoor sun exposure convinced an entire generation that bronze skin could be achieved without risks associated with lying on a beach. Commercials featured glowing models stepping out of sleek machines, their skin perfectly golden and smiles suggesting nothing could go wrong. The word safe appeared constantly, reassuring customers that controlled ultraviolet exposure was somehow different from the sun outside. Salons popped up in strip malls across the country as young people lined up to achieve the look they saw in magazines. Parents even bought home tanning units as gifts, believing they offered a healthier alternative to outdoor sunbathing. Nobody mentioned melanoma, premature aging, or the cumulative damage ultraviolet rays caused, regardless of their source. The advertisements created false security that lasted years until medical research revealed the true cost of chasing that perfect tan. By then, countless people had spent hours inside glowing coffins, trusting promises that turned out dangerously misleading. It is unsettling now to watch old footage of those ads and realize how confidently they sold a lie wrapped in the language of wellness and beauty. Asbestos product ads boasting fireproof family protection ran for decades before the 1980s, but their legacy lingered long after commercials stopped airing. Families who installed asbestos insulation, flooring, or ceiling tiles based on those reassuring advertisements lived surrounded by the material without realizing the danger hiding inside their walls. Original ads showed happy homeowners protected from flames, children playing safely in rooms that would never burn. The word fireproof carried so much weight that people trusted it completely. What nobody understood was that asbestos fibers, once disturbed, floated invisibly through the air and lodged permanently in lung tissue. By the 80s, lawsuits were piling up, warning labels were appearing, and entire industries were scrambling to distance themselves from a material they once celebrated. Homeowners who remembered those confident advertisements faced the terrifying realization that protection they paid for was slowly poisoning their families. Watching archived footage of those old ads today feels surreal, like witnessing a world where danger wore the disguise of safety and nobody asked right questions until far too late. Baby formula ads discouraging breastfeeding as old-fashioned created a cultural shift, convincing millions of mothers they were doing something primitive by nursing their children. Commercials featured sleek bottles, modern kitchens, and confident women who had moved beyond what advertisers framed as an outdated practice. The messaging was clear. Formula was scientific, convenient, and superior to anything the human body could produce. Hospitals handed out free samples. Pediatricians offered coupons, and new mothers felt pressured to embrace what seemed like progress. Women who chose to breastfeed were sometimes made to feel backward, as if rejecting modern parenting advancements. What ads never mentioned was that breast milk contained antibodies and bonding benefits no laboratory could replicate. By the time researchers pushed back and health organizations recommended breastfeeding, an entire generation had been raised on formula marketed as the smarter choice. Looking back, it is painful to realize how effectively advertising convinced mothers to distrust their own bodies, trading something irreplaceable for a product designed primarily to generate profit for corporations. Lead paint ads showcasing bright colors for children's. Rooms ran for decades before anyone fully understood the nightmare they created. Advertisements featured nurseries glowing with cheerful yellows, vibrant blues, and candy-colored pinks, promising that fresh paint could transform any space into a safe haven for little ones. Parents trusted these products because colors looked inviting and companies seemed reputable. Hardware stores stocked shelves with cans bearing friendly labels, and families painted cribs, toy chests, and bedroom walls without a second thought. What nobody knew was that lead paint chips tasted sweet to curious toddlers who chewed on windowsills and crib rails with no idea of poison entering their bodies. Neurological damage from lead exposure took years to surface, manifesting as learning disabilities and developmental delays doctors could not always trace back. By the time regulations banned lead from household paints, millions of children had already been exposed. It is haunting to look at vintage ads now, with promises of beautiful nurseries, and realize every bright brushstroke carried a hidden cost no parent ever agreed to pay. Diet pill ads with unregulated miracle ingredients promised transformation so dramatic that people ignored every warning sign flashing before them. Commercials showed before and after photos that seemed impossible, with testimonials from people claiming to have lost 50 or 100 pounds without changing anything except adding one tiny pill to their routine. Ingredients were often vague, described in scientific-sounding language that seemed legitimate without explaining what they actually did inside the body. People swallowed capsules containing stimulants, thyroid disruptors, and chemicals never tested on humans in any meaningful way. Bathrooms became medicine cabinets of hope, as families stocked up on bottles promising figures from magazines. Some experienced heart palpitations, mood swings, or collapses, sending them to emergency rooms, while others noticed weight came back the moment they stopped taking pills. When regulators cracked down, dangerous formulations vanished only to reappear under new names with slightly adjusted ingredients. It is disturbing to think how many people trusted their health to products sold with nothing but promises and photos that may not have even been real. Car ads ignoring seatbelts and child safety entirely showed families cruising down highways with children bouncing freely in back seats, standing between front seats, or sitting on parents' laps while drivers smiled at the road. Commercials sold freedom, adventure, and the joy of open roads without acknowledging that sudden stops could turn unrestrained children into projectiles. Seatbelts existed, but advertisements treated them as optional accessories rather than life-saving devices. Parents saw these images and internalized the message that car travel was inherently safe, that vehicle design alone would protect loved ones in any situation. Children grew up believing hanging out windows or climbing over seats was simply part of the driving experience. When crash statistics revealed the horrifying reality of what happened to unbuckled passengers, the advertising industry slowly changed its approach. But for years, families trusted images of carefree travel painting safety equipment as unnecessary clutter. Looking back at those commercials now feels almost reckless, watching smiling families hurtling down roads with nothing protecting them except luck and the assumption accidents only happen to others. Household cleaner ads with children handling toxic products showed cheerful families tackling chores together, with kids spraying, scrubbing, and pouring chemicals onto surfaces as if playing with harmless toys. Commercials sold the idea that cleaning could be fun, a family activity where everyone pitched in over sparkling countertops. What they glossed over was that many products contained ammonia, bleach, or solvents capable of causing serious harm if inhaled, swallowed, or splashed into young eyes. Children in ads wore no gloves, no goggles, and showed no hesitation reaching for bottles that today would carry skull and crossbones warnings. Parents watching internalized the idea that involving children in housework was wholesome, never questioning whether handing kids spray bottles of industrial chemicals was actually safe. Poison control centers fielded countless calls from families whose children mimicked what they saw on television, resulting in burns, poisonings, and emergency visits never shown in advertisements. It is uncomfortable now to realize that commercials making cleaning look like family bonding normalized giving children access to the most dangerous substances in homes. Alcohol ads targeting teenagers with cool imagery filled the 1980s with commercials that made drinking look like the fastest path to popularity and romance. Young-looking models lounged on beaches, danced at parties, and drove convertibles through sun-drenched landscapes while holding bottles that sparkled like liquid confidence. The message was unmistakable. Alcohol was the key to the life everyone wanted. These ads ran during sports events and prime-time slots where teenagers gathered in front of television sets. Brands used celebrity endorsements, catchy jingles, and slick production values, making beer and wine coolers seem as harmless as soda pop. Parents rarely questioned why advertisements for adult beverages looked so much like campaigns aimed at their children. The industry insisted they were targeting adults, but the imagery told a different story entirely. When researchers documented the connection between alcohol advertising and underage drinking, the awkwardness became impossible to ignore. Looking back, it is disturbing to realize how openly these campaigns courted young viewers while pretending not to notice who was watching and absorbing every glamorous frame. Toy gun ads encouraging realistic combat play dominated Saturday morning commercial breaks throughout the 1980s, showing children charging through backyards with weapons designed to look authentic. Commercials featured dramatic music, slow-motion action, and kids dressed in military gear stalking each other through suburban landscapes. The guns clicked, popped, and produced sound effects that made every battle feel intense. Parents bought these toys believing imaginative play was healthy, never questioning why manufacturers worked to blur the line between toys and real weapons. Children begged for the newest models, wanting ones that looked most like what they saw in action movies. What nobody anticipated was how realistic designs would create dangerous situations when kids carried them outside. Police officers responding to calls could not always tell the difference between plastic and metal in a split second. When tragedies began making headlines, the toy industry faced pressure to add orange tips and distinguishing features. It is unsettling now to watch those old ads and see how enthusiastically they sold realism as a feature rather than a risk. Feminine hygiene ads, shaming women into buying products, turned natural bodily functions into sources of embarrassment only specific brands could solve. Commercials whispered about freshness and the terrible social consequences of being anything less than perfectly odorless. Women in white dresses twirled through fields while voiceovers warned about moments that could ruin everything if the wrong product was chosen. The messaging created anxiety where none needed to exist, convincing generations that their bodies were problems requiring constant management. Advertisers invented conditions and sold the cures, using fear and shame as primary marketing tools. Young girls watching absorbed the message that something was fundamentally wrong with them, fixable only by expensive products in discreet packaging. Doctors later explained many products were unnecessary at best and harmful at worst, disrupting natural balances in ways that created the very problems they claimed to prevent. Looking back at those commercials reveals a troubling pattern of exploiting insecurity for profit, turning ordinary biology into shame that sold millions of products to women who never needed them. Fast food ads, claiming menu items were nutritious, showed happy families gathering around tables piled high with burgers, fries, and shakes, while voiceovers emphasized wholesome ingredients and balanced meals. These commercials featured fresh vegetables being sliced, bread being baked, and beef being prepared as if every location operated like a home kitchen committed to family health. Parents trusted these messages because they came from familiar brands that had been serving communities for decades. Children saw the colorful playgrounds, the smiling mascots, and the toys tucked inside their meals, never suspecting that the food itself might be anything other than good for them. What the ads carefully avoided mentioning was the sodium content, the saturated fat, the added sugars, and the calorie counts that made these meals closer to dietary disasters than balanced nutrition. When researchers began publishing studies linking fast food consumption to childhood obesity and related health problems, the industry quietly shifted its messaging. But for years, families had trusted advertisements that painted drive-through dinners as responsible choices for busy parents who cared about feeding their kids well. Credit card ads encouraging reckless spending habits showed people living dreams they could not afford, swiping plastic with carefree smiles while voiceovers promised freedom, flexibility, and the power to have everything right now. These commercials featured vacations, shopping sprees, and lavish dinners, all made possible by a simple card that seemed to have no limits and no consequences. The fine print scrolled by too fast to read, and nobody in the ads ever mentioned interest rates, minimum payments, or the crushing debt that could follow a lifestyle built on borrowed money. Young adults watched and absorbed the message that waiting was unnecessary, that desire and ownership should happen simultaneously, that tomorrow's bills were problems for tomorrow's version of themselves. Banks and credit companies competed to sign up customers with promises of rewards, cash back, and exclusive privileges that masked the trap being set. When the bills arrived and balances grew faster than incomes, many people found themselves drowning in debt they never fully understood. It is uncomfortable now to realize how these ads normalized financial behavior that would devastate millions of families for years to come. Prescription drug ads with endless side effect lists became a strange fixture of 1980s television, showing happy people jogging through parks and laughing at dinner parties while rapid voiceovers rattled off warnings contradicting everything on screen. Visuals promised relief and vitality, while audio whispered about nausea, dizziness, bleeding, organ damage, and occasionally, death. Viewers learned to tune out warnings, focusing instead on smiling faces and promises that simple pills could solve their problems. Pharmaceutical companies understood emotional imagery overpowered spoken disclaimers and designed commercials accordingly. Patients began asking doctors for medications by name, convinced by advertisements they knew what they needed better than trained professionals. When regulators examined how ads influenced prescribing patterns, they found marketing had become more powerful than medical judgment in many cases. Looking back, the absurdity is hard to ignore. beautiful images selling medications while voices listed reasons why those same medications might harm or kill the people taking them. Hair product ads using dangerous chemical straighteners promised sleek, manageable hair that would transform how the world saw you. Commercials showed women running fingers through impossibly smooth strands while voiceovers celebrated the science behind formulas that could tame even resistant curls. Products smelled harsh and tingled on scalps, but customers trusted that a little discomfort was the price of beauty. Salons applied treatments in poorly ventilated spaces, and home kits came with instructions barely mentioning risks of chemical burns, hair loss, or long-term health consequences. Women sat with caustic substances inches from their brains, waiting for the timer to signal transformation. What ads never showed was the damage happening beneath the surface, the scarring, breakage, and health concerns emerging only after years of repeated use. When studies linked certain straightening chemicals to serious medical conditions, the industry faced scrutiny it had avoided for decades. It is troubling now to watch those old commercials and see how confidently they sold products that were quietly harming the customers they claimed to help. Sunscreen ads with misleading SPF protection claims convinced beachgoers they were fully protected when reality was far more complicated. Commercials showed families spending entire days in the sun, applying lotion once in the morning and forgetting about it while they swam and played under intense ultraviolet rays. The numbers on bottles kept climbing higher, suggesting greater protection was just a purchase away, but nobody explained what those numbers meant or how often reapplication was necessary. Parents slathered children with products they believed would prevent harm, trusting advertising over science. What ads failed to mention was that no sunscreen offered complete protection. Water and sweat washed away coverage faster than people realized, and false security encouraged longer exposure than unprotected skin would tolerate. Dermatologists later documented the surge in skin cancers among people who believed they had been careful. Looking back at those commercials with promises of worry-free days under blazing sun, it is clear how dangerous incomplete information can be when health is at stake and trust is given so easily. Mattress ads. Claiming miraculous health benefits promised that a single purchase could cure back pain, improve posture, and transform every aspect of daily life. Commercials showed people waking up refreshed, stretching with smiles suggesting the mattress had solved problems doctors could not touch. Ads used scientific-sounding language about support systems, pressure points, and alignment technology that seemed impressive even when it meant nothing. Families spent thousands believing they were investing in health rather than just furniture, trusting claims never verified by independent research. Salespeople in showrooms repeated promises, adding testimonials about customers whose lives had been changed by choosing the right bed. What nobody mentioned was that most claims were marketing inventions designed to justify premium prices rather than deliver proven results. When consumer agencies examined the industry, they found exaggerations so common that meaningful comparisons became impossible. It is awkward now to remember how desperately people wanted to believe a mattress could fix what was broken and how eagerly advertisers exploited that hope. Household pesticide ads showing indoor spraying as safe depicted families cheerfully fogging kitchens, bedrooms, and living rooms with chemicals designed to kill insects on contact. Commercials featured smiling mothers spraying countertops where food would be prepared, children playing in rooms still clouded with mist, and pets wandering through freshly treated spaces without concern. The message was clear. These products were safe enough that normal life could continue immediately after use. Nobody discussed ventilation, protective equipment, or the possibility that chemicals strong enough to kill bugs might affect people breathing them in. Families trusted packaging showing happy households free from pests, never questioning whether fine print warnings mattered. What ads concealed was that many pesticides contained compounds later linked to respiratory problems, neurological damage, and developmental issues in children exposed repeatedly. When health agencies began restricting certain active ingredients, the contrast with cheerful commercials became almost unbearable. It is disturbing now to realize how casually dangerous chemicals were marketed for use in the most intimate spaces of family life. Vitamin ads promising children would grow taller and smarter showed cartoon-shaped supplements as magical pills that could transform an average kid into something extraordinary. Commercials featured children who took these vitamins outperforming classmates in sports, acing tests, and shooting up in height, while vitaminless peers fell behind. Parents wanting every advantage for their children rushed to buy bottles decorated with friendly characters and bold promises. The messaging implied that without supplements, kids might never reach full potential, creating guilt that drove sales higher every year. What advertisements glossed over was that most children eating balanced meals needed no supplementation, and megadoses of certain vitamins could cause harm. The connection between a chewable tablet and academic success existed only in marketing, not in scientific study. When pediatricians pushed back against exaggerated claims, some companies quietly toned down promises. It is uncomfortable now to realize how many parents spent money on products delivering little beyond peace of mind, manufactured entirely by advertising. Fur coat ads glamorizing animal pelts as status symbols showed elegant women draped in mink, fox, and chinchilla, as if wearing true luxury meant wearing another creature's very skin. Commercials featured slow-motion shots of fur swaying gracefully, models running fingers through thick pelts, and voiceovers whispering about exclusivity and timeless style. The animals themselves were never mentioned except as materials transformed into high fashion. Department stores displayed coats under bright spotlights while salespeople explained how a quality fur was an investment that would last for generations. Families saved for years to purchase coats, signaling arrival into higher social class. What ads avoided was any image of the farms, traps, or slaughterhouses producing these garments. The disconnect between glamorous footage and reality of fur production remained hidden. When animal rights activists began exposing what the industry concealed, the awkwardness of those commercials became impossible to ignore. It is unsettling now to watch ads that treated cruelty as elegance and sold suffering in tissue paper. Exercise equipment ads with impossible transformation claims filled late-night television with promises that a single gadget could deliver the body of a lifetime with minimal effort. Infomercials ran for 30 minutes, showing before and after photos so dramatic they seemed to belong to entirely different people. Hosts demonstrated machines supposedly targeting belly fat, sculpting arms, or building muscle while users watched television at home. The fine print mentioned diet and exercise programs actually producing results, but nobody read fine print when visuals were so compelling. Families ordered devices arriving in boxes too heavy to move, used them twice, and watched them collect dust in garages. The shame of not achieving promised results kept people from complaining, which kept infomercials running year after year. When regulators forced companies to substantiate claims, many simply disappeared and reappeared with new names and slightly different gadgets. It is awkward now to remember how many people believed 15 minutes daily could replace discipline, and how eagerly advertisers fed that fantasy. Instant lottery ticket ads showing winners as everyday people convinced viewers that wealth was just one scratch away from their kitchen tables. Commercials featured factory workers, teachers, and retirees holding oversized checks with tears streaming down their faces while families embraced. The message was intoxicating. You could be next. Convenience stores stacked tickets beside candy bars, making impulse purchases feel harmless and hopeful. People who could barely afford groceries spent dollars chasing dreams the ads made seemed tantalizingly close. What commercials never showed was the mathematics, the overwhelming odds stacked against every player, the countless tickets purchased by people who would never win anything meaningful. The rare winners were broadcast repeatedly while millions of losers remained invisible and forgotten. When studies revealed how lottery spending disproportionately affected low-income communities, the cheerful tone of those commercials felt suddenly cruel. It is troubling now to realize how effectively ads sold hope to people who could least afford to gamble with their futures. Microwave oven ads claiming radiation was completely harmless showed families gathering around these space-age appliances as if they had welcomed the future into their kitchens. Commercials featured children pressing faces against glass doors, watching popcorn pop, while voiceovers assured viewers that every safety concern had been addressed. The word radiation appeared only to be dismissed, wrapped in reassurances that scientists had found nothing to worry about. Parents trusted these messages because convenience was undeniable and technology felt inevitable. What ads minimized was that early microwave ovens sometimes leaked energy through imperfect seals, and long-term effects remained unknown. Families stood inches from operating units for years before improved shielding became mandatory. The rush to sell appliances outpaced research needed to guarantee safety. When concerns about electromagnetic exposure grew louder, the confidence of those old commercials seemed reckless. It is unsettling now to watch ads promising complete safety about technology still being studied decades after entering every kitchen. Cologne ads promising women would obey wearers leaned into a fantasy of masculine control that advertisers embraced without hesitation. These commercials showed confident men splashing on fragrance and suddenly finding themselves surrounded by adoring women who seemed powerless to resist. The messaging was direct. Wear this scent, and women will follow your lead. Hang on your every word and do whatever you desire. Holiday versions wrapped this troubling premise in festive imagery, suggesting that the perfect Christmas gift for any man was a bottle of irresistible power. Voiceovers used words like command, conquer, and captivate, framing romantic attraction as something closer to domination. Women in these ads had little personality beyond their wide-eyed admiration, reduced to props that validated the product's exaggerated claims. Nobody questioned whether such messaging was harmful or degrading. It was simply how fragrance was sold, with swagger, fantasy, and deeply problematic undertones. Today, airing an ad that promised women would obey a cologne wearer would be immediately condemned as sexist, dangerous, and wildly out of touch with cultural expectations around consent and respect. Nothing screams health and hedonism, quite like disco dancers celebrating imitation bacon. The back O's salad revolution ads of the 1970s turned something as simple as soy flakes into a symbol of liberation. Men in polyester suits and women in glittery jumpsuits stood over bowls of lettuce, tossing fake bacon bits into the air with joy that bordered on hysteria. The copy declared it a new way to love your salad, as if crunchy red crumbles could save dinner, and maybe the decade. The campaign promised flavor without fat, sizzle without guilt, and glamour without effort. But beneath the glitter and jazz hands was something unmistakably awkward. The idea that throwing fake bacon on a salad could be a lifestyle. The smiles looked a little too wide, the lettuce too limp, the joy too staged. Back-O's weren't just a topping. They were a statement of artificial excess dressed as progress. Watching the ad now feels like watching a fever dream where everyone is dancing to the sound of a salad spinner. Store-brand ice cream in the rectangular cardboard tub sat in freezers as the affordable treat that made holiday desserts possible without emptying the grocery budget. The tub was plain, printed with simple stripes or generic designs that made no attempt to compete with the fancy containers nearby. Inside, the ice cream was slightly icier than premium brands, slightly less creamy, but still cold and sweet, and exactly what everyone wanted after a big meal. Parents scooped it over warm pie, alongside cake, or straight into bowls for kids who had earned something sweet for finishing their vegetables. The flavors were basic, usually vanilla, chocolate, or strawberry, but they paired with everything and complained about nothing. The cardboard tub often found a second life in the freezer, refilled with homemade soup or used to store leftovers until someone remembered to throw it away. Nobody mistook it for gourmet, but nobody expected gourmet either. The ice cream did its job quietly and consistently, melting into memories that had nothing to do with brand names and everything to do with family gathered around the table. Toy gun ads encouraging real combat for boys dominated Christmas commercial blocks, showing young children charging through backyards with plastic rifles and shouting battle cries. These commercials promised authenticity, bragging about realistic sounds, lifelike designs, and mechanisms that mimicked actual firearms. Boys were told to gear up, take aim, and defeat imaginary enemies in scenarios that blurred the line between play and genuine conflict. Parents watching saw nothing unusual, because toy guns were simply part of childhood, handed down through generations. The ads featured military imagery, camouflage outfits, and language that glorified combat as exciting, heroic, and undeniably masculine. Nobody paused to consider how these messages shaped young minds. Voiceovers urged kids to ask for these toys by name, and stores stocked shelves high with options ranging from pistols to machine guns. Today, advertising that glamorizes weapon play for children would be pulled from the air before the first commercial break ended, rejected by networks and criticized by groups alarmed by the connection between play violence and real-world consequences. The Kraft Cheese Singles campaign for bachelors was a masterclass in low expectations. The print ads showed rugged-looking men sitting alone at small kitchen tables, proudly layering bright orange cheese on plain white bread. "A real meal for a real man," the slogan read, as if independence were measured in slices. The tone was half macho, half melancholy. Kraft had found a way to romanticize loneliness through processed cheese. The men in the photos looked stoic, caught somewhere between pride and quiet despair. Their dinner was neon and square, but the message was crystal clear. Simplicity was masculine, and effort was weakness. Kraft didn't just sell cheese, it sold the comfort of not needing anyone else to cook for you. The ads leaned into the new modern man image, self-sufficient, efficient, and completely unbothered by the absence of utensils. Beneath the tough guy veneer, though, was something quietly sad. A generation of men taught that convenience was strength and effort was weakness. The cheese shone like vinyl, the bread drooped under the weight, and yet they called it dinner. Looking back, it's both funny and a little tragic, a reminder that even masculinity was something you could sell, one cheese slice at a time. Perfume ads, using suggestive holiday innuendos, pushed boundaries that seem shockingly bold by modern advertising standards. These commercials featured sultry voiceovers, lingering glances, and imagery that barely concealed what the fragrance supposedly promised: seduction, passion, and irresistible allure. Holiday versions wrapped this sensuality in red velvet, mistletoe, and suggestive taglines about what might happen after the gifts were unwrapped. Women were often positioned as objects of desire, their only purpose to attract attention and satisfy fantasies. Men were encouraged to purchase these perfumes as gifts that would transform their partners into something more exciting and available. The messaging reinforced ideas about women existing primarily to please, wrapped in glamour, and sold as romance. Children watching holiday specials absorbed these images without context, learning early that femininity was tied to desirability. Nobody thought twice about airing such content during family programming. Today, broadcasting perfume ads laden with sexual innuendo during holiday viewing hours would be rejected by networks concerned about complaints and cultural expectations of appropriateness. Powdered milk for holiday baking was one of those quiet sacrifices that mothers made without ever drawing attention to it, stirring the white dust into water and hoping no one noticed. The cardboard box sat in the pantry like a secret, pulled out only when the recipe demanded milk and the refrigerator held none. Kids sometimes caught a glimpse of the mixing process and wrinkled their noses, but they still devoured the cookies that came out of the oven without complaint. Fresh milk was expensive, and in families where every dollar had a destination, wasting it on baking seemed reckless. Powdered milk stretched further, lasted longer, and never spoiled before you could use it. It showed up in cakes, frostings, puddings, and breads, blending into recipes where its presence was nearly invisible. Mothers learned tricks to mask the slight difference in taste, adding extra vanilla or a touch more sugar. And the truth is, most of the time, no one could tell. The cookies still disappeared, the cakes still earned praise, and the powdered milk box quietly returned to its shelf. It was never glamorous, never something families bragged about, but it kept traditions alive when fresh ingredients felt like luxuries. Cigarette brand Christmas gift sets marketed to wives were once wrapped in red ribbon and sold as tokens of holiday love, sitting right beside perfume and jewelry in department store displays. Advertisers showed smiling husbands handing over elegant cartons to grateful wives, as if nicotine were the greatest gesture of affection a man could offer. The slogans dripped with romance, promising that a particular brand would make her feel sophisticated, relaxed, and appreciated during the busy holiday season. Nobody blinked at the idea of gifting something now known to cause serious illness, because back then, smoking was woven into the fabric of everyday life. Commercials featured cozy living rooms, crackling fires, and couples lighting up together after Christmas dinner like it was the most natural thing in the world. Children watched these ads between cartoon specials, absorbing the message that cigarettes meant love, class, and celebration. The jingles were catchy, the packaging was festive, and the warnings were nowhere to be found. Today, airing an ad that positioned cigarettes as romantic gifts would be unthinkable, a relic of an era when danger was dressed in holiday cheer and sold with a smile. Generic brand cola in 2-liter bottles was the unmistakable sign that your family knew how to stretch a holiday budget, and it sat on dinner tables across the country without apology. The labels were plain, the fonts were blocky, and the fizz never quite matched the famous brands everyone saw in commercials. But it was cold, it was sweet, and it filled glasses just as easily as anything else. Kids learned quickly not to mention the difference, because pointing it out only reminded everyone of what they could not afford. Parents poured it into pitchers or lined up the bottles along the counter as if presentation could erase the discount. Grandparents who remembered harder times never complained, because soda of any kind was a luxury they never had growing up. And somehow, after the first few sips, no one really cared anymore. The bubbles tickled the same, the sugar rush hit the same, and the laughter around the table drowned out any thoughts about labels. What mattered was that everyone had a glass in front of them and a plate full of food. Those bottles became part of the memory, not as something lesser, but as proof that celebration did not require a name brand. The Cool Whip commercials of the 1970s were small theater performances about deception. The tagline, "Tastes just like real whipped cream," was delivered with such conviction that even the actors looked surprised. The ads usually opened with a smiling mother serving dessert and someone gasping, "You made fresh whipped cream?" Cue the laughter, cue the reveal, cue the unsettling close-up of Cool Whip glistening like plastic snow. What makes these commercials so awkward isn't the product, it's the drama. Everyone acted like discovering imitation cream was a spiritual experience. Housewives were promised elegance without effort, a modern miracle that replaced tradition with convenience. But underneath the charm was an odd tension, a culture so obsessed with speed it forgot what cream even tasted like. Watching them now, you can almost hear the sigh between lines. Is this what progress tastes like? A spoonful of nostalgia, equal parts sweet and artificial. Kool-Aid packets for holiday punch lined the grocery aisle in rows of bright colors, each small envelope promising a full pitcher of sweetness for just a few cents. Families bought them by the dozen, mixing cherry with grape or orange with lemon to create signature blends that showed up at every holiday gathering throughout the season. The powder dissolved into tap water with a swirl of a wooden spoon, transforming something ordinary into something that looked almost festive when served in a glass bowl with ice cubes floating gently on top. Kids loved the bright colors and the sugar rush that followed every cup, completely unaware that the punch was standing in for sodas or juices that cost far more. Parents stirred in extra sugar to match the sweetness of store-bought drinks, and no one complained. The powder stained lips, fingers, and sometimes kitchen counters, but it also stained memories with something close to joy. Holiday punch made from Kool-Aid became a tradition in homes where creativity stretched further than cash, and the taste still triggers deep nostalgia for anyone who grew up watching that powder bloom into color. Fur coat ads positioning women as holiday trophies filled glossy magazines and television screens with imagery that reduced femininity to something draped and displayed. These commercials showed women twirling in luxurious pelts while men stood nearby with satisfied expressions, as if purchasing the coat had somehow purchased the woman inside it. The messaging was unmistakable. A fur coat was not just a gift, it was proof that a man had succeeded enough to afford something extravagant for the woman he owned. Holiday versions featured snowy backdrops, elegant parties, and voiceovers describing how she would finally feel worthy of attention when wrapped in real mink or fox. Nobody questioned the ethics of the fur itself or the troubling implication that women existed to be decorated. Children absorbed the idea that expensive gifts defined love and that women measured their value by what men provided. Today, such an ad would face immediate backlash from animal rights activists, feminist critics, and audiences who reject the notion that women are accessories to be purchased and shown off during the holiday season. If you ever doubted the creativity of 1970s advertisers, look no further than the Vienna sausage party platter. Canned meat was molded, skewered, and stacked into elaborate towers, decorated with pineapple rings, maraschino cherries, and cocktail umbrellas. The ad proudly declared it the fancy new way to entertain. Imagine inviting your neighbors over and unveiling a pyramid of glistening sausages held together with toothpicks and wishful thinking. These ads treated canned meat like fine charcuterie, photographed under soft lighting to make it look glamorous instead of greasy. The guests in the pictures always looked thrilled, one hand clutching a sausage tower, the other pretending not to notice the gelatin glaze forming at room temperature. This was food that dared you to smile while you chewed. Beneath the bright optimism was a deeper truth about the 1970s. Processed food wasn't just convenient, it was a badge of progress. The more artificial it looked, the more futuristic it felt. And maybe that's why the Vienna sausage tower remains one of the funniest, most haunting culinary artifacts of the decade. Sexist kitchen appliance ads targeting happy housewives filled the commercial breaks of every holiday special, showing women beaming with joy at the sight of a new blender or toaster under the tree. These ads portrayed the kitchen as a woman's kingdom, suggesting that the greatest gift a husband could give was something that made her domestic duties easier and faster. The women in these commercials wore aprons, pearls, and expressions of pure gratitude, as if receiving a vacuum cleaner was the emotional highlight of their entire year. Voiceovers praised these appliances for helping wives serve their families better, reinforcing the idea that a woman's worth was measured by how smoothly dinner appeared on the table. Husbands in the ads sat proudly in armchairs, satisfied that they had chosen a gift both practical and appreciated, never once questioning why their wives might want something less utilitarian. Children grew up watching these messages, absorbing expectations about gender roles wrapped in cheerful holiday music. Today, running an ad that reduced women to grateful kitchen workers would ignite a firestorm of criticism and boycott calls faster than any appliance could blend a smoothie. Instant mashed potatoes from a box saved countless holiday dinners when time ran short and real potatoes felt like too much work. The flakes poured out like snowdrift into boiling water, transforming within seconds into something that resembled the creamy side dish everyone expected on the table. Families added extra butter, a splash of milk, and sometimes a spoonful of sour cream to disguise the texture that never quite matched the real thing. Kids scooped them onto plates without suspicion, mixing them with gravy until the origins became impossible to detect. Parents appreciated the speed, the consistency, and the price that allowed them to stretch the grocery budget toward the meat or the dessert. Real mashed potatoes took time that busy households did not always have, especially during the chaos of holiday cooking when every burner was occupied. Instant potatoes filled the gap without judgment, sitting in the pantry until the moment they were needed. They were never the star of the meal, but they showed up reliably, blending into the background of family dinners where presence mattered more than perfection. Few ads capture the blind optimism of the 1970s like Tang's Breakfast of Astronauts campaign. Housewives in pastel kitchens poured bright orange powder into glasses of water, proudly telling their kids they were drinking what the astronauts drink. The space race had ended, but the marketing galaxy was still expanding, and Tang wanted to keep orbiting America's imagination. The commercials showed children hesitantly sipping the sugary concoction as a narrator boomed, "It's the taste of tomorrow," a line that aged faster than the product itself. In reality, Tang was a sugary, citrus-flavored drink mix with more chemicals than vitamins, but that didn't stop it from claiming energy for the day's adventures. Mothers were told it would make their kids smarter, stronger, and maybe even a little closer to the stars. What makes it so awkward today isn't just the forced enthusiasm, it's how earnestly people believe that a cup of orange dust could turn breakfast into a NASA mission. It's both charming and bizarre, a window into a time when science and sugar shared the same spoon. Beer commercials featuring Santa drinking on the job were holiday staples that aired without a hint of controversy in the 1970s. Advertisers loved pairing jolly old Saint Nick with a frosty mug, implying that even the busiest man in the world needed to unwind with a cold one after a long night of deliveries. These ads showed Santa cracking open bottles by the fireplace, raising a toast with grateful homeowners, or even sneaking sips between chimney stops. The humor was simple. If Santa trusted this brand, surely it was good enough for everyone else gathered around the television. Nobody worried about the message it sent to children watching alongside their parents because alcohol and holiday cheer seemed naturally intertwined. Taglines joked about reindeer waiting impatiently or Mrs. Claus pouring refills at the North Pole. It all felt harmless, festive, and funny. Today, depicting Santa consuming alcohol in a commercial would trigger immediate backlash from parent groups, regulators, and advocacy organizations who understand how easily such images blur the line between celebration and promotion of drinking. Canned fruit cocktail appeared at holiday desserts as the affordable finale that nobody questioned and everyone quietly enjoyed without complaint. The chunky mix of peaches, pears, grapes, and those mysterious bright red cherries floated in thick syrup that tasted sweeter than any fresh fruit could ever manage. Mothers spooned it into bowls, sometimes topped with a dollop of whipped cream from a pressurized can or a scoop of vanilla ice cream that slowly melted into the syrup below. Kids loved the treasure hunt aspect of finding their favorite fruit pieces, pushing aside the pears to reach the cherries or saving the grapes for last. Fresh fruit was expensive and spoiled quickly, especially during winter months when options at the grocery store were severely limited. Canned fruit cocktails solved both problems, sitting on pantry shelves indefinitely until someone decided it was time for dessert. It showed up in Jell-O molds, layered parfaits, and simple bowls passed around the table after the main meal ended. The fruit was soft, the syrup was sweet, and the memories of scraping the last pieces from the bowl still linger warmly for anyone who grew up with this humble dessert. Diet pill Christmas specials for weight-conscious women promised holiday transformations that now seem dangerously irresponsible. Advertisers targeted women with messaging that implied looking slim was the greatest gift they could give themselves, their husbands, and their holiday photographs. These commercials aired during family viewing hours, featuring slim models explaining how easy it was to shed pounds before the big party or fit into last year's dress just in time for Christmas dinner. The pills themselves contain stimulants and appetite suppressants that have since been banned or heavily restricted, but back then they were sold as harmless helpers. Voiceovers assured viewers that results came quickly, safely, and without the need for exercise or willpower. Young girls watched alongside their mothers, absorbing messages that equated thinness with happiness and self-worth. Nobody questioned whether promoting rapid weight loss during the season of indulgence might cause harm. Today, airing ads that push unregulated diet pills on women during the holidays would be met with outrage, regulatory scrutiny, and widespread condemnation from health professionals and advocates alike. The Swanson Modern Family Feast campaign was a love letter to convenience disguised as progress. The print ads and commercials showed a picture-perfect family smiling around foil trays, each meal divided neatly into mashed potatoes, green beans, and a mysterious brown entree. "No dishes, no fuss," the tagline boasted, as if effort itself were the enemy. The mother beamed, holding a steaming tray like a trophy of liberation. For the first time, dinner didn't require pots, pans, or patience, just faith in the microwave and a tolerance for lukewarm gravy. The awkwardness came from the contrast between the cheerful tone and the bleak reality. Everyone eating alone together, focused on their own tray. The 1970s promised that technology would bring families closer, but the Swanson ad shows the opposite, a quiet distance hidden behind the glow of convenience. Watching it today, it feels less like progress and more like a perfectly preserved moment of lonely efficiency. Household cleaner ads showing women in servitude portrayed scrubbing floors and polishing surfaces as expressions of feminine devotion rather than shared household labor. These commercials featured wives and mothers on their hands and knees, cheerfully attacking dirt while husbands relaxed in nearby rooms, blissfully unaware of the effort happening just out of sight. Holiday versions added festive pressure, reminding women that guests would judge their homes and, by extension, their worth as homemakers. The products promised to make the endless cycle of cleaning faster, easier, and more satisfying, as if joy could be found at the bottom of a bucket of suds. Voiceovers praised the dedicated woman who kept her home spotless despite the chaos of the season. Children absorbed these images, learning early that cleaning was a woman's responsibility and pride. Men were absent from the labor entirely, appearing only to appreciate the gleaming results. Today, depicting women as sole custodians of household cleanliness while men contribute nothing would spark boycotts, social media backlash, and accusations of regressive stereotyping that no brand could afford to ignore. Jiffy cornbread mix came in small boxes that cost almost nothing and produced golden squares of warm, slightly sweet bread that paired beautifully with nearly everything on the holiday table. The batter took minutes to prepare, stirred together with an egg and a splash of milk before sliding into the oven alongside whatever else was already cooking. Kids fought over the corner pieces where the crust turned crispy and the edges browned just enough to crackle between their teeth. Parents served it with chili, with beans, with ham, and with anything else that needed something warm and filling to complete the plate properly. The box promised simplicity, and it delivered without fail every single time the family needed it. Real cornbread from scratch took more ingredients, more time, and more skill than busy holiday kitchens could always afford to spare. Jiffy bridged the gap without apology, offering a shortcut that tasted close enough to homemade that most people never questioned it. The little blue and white box became a holiday staple in homes where the budget demanded compromises, earning loyalty from families who came to depend on its quiet reliability. And talk they did. Kraft's Perfection Salad was the stuff of suburban legend, a towering gelatin mold stuffed with shredded carrots, cabbage, celery, and dollops of mayonnaise. The tagline, "Your guests will talk about it," was probably the most honest line ever written, because there's no way anyone could see it and stay quiet. The ad's photo showed the quivering mass perched proudly on a silver platter, catching the light like a chandelier made of regret. It was meant to be classy, the ideal centerpiece for modern hostesses who wanted sophistication with a spoon. But sophistication melted under the weight of lime gelatin and mayonnaise. Guests in the photos smiled politely, holding forks mid-air, while their eyes said, "Why?" It was the 1970s obsession with form over flavor, a world where food didn't have to taste good, it just had to jiggle dramatically. Today, Perfection Salad stands as a beautiful disaster, proof that the road to elegance was paved with mayonnaise and questionable ambition. Car ads showing families driving without seatbelts captured a carefree attitude toward safety that feels almost reckless by modern standards. These commercials featured smiling parents in the front seat and children bouncing freely in the back, sometimes even standing or leaning between the seats to point at holiday decorations passing by. Advertisers focused on comfort, style, and the joy of family road trips, never once mentioning restraints or safety features. The cars themselves were marketed as spacious enough for everyone to move around, as if freedom of movement inside a moving vehicle was a selling point rather than a hazard. Holiday versions of these ads showed families heading to grandma's house through snowy landscapes, laughter filling the cabin while seatbelts hung limp and ignored. Nobody imagined that a sudden stop could turn that cheerful scene into tragedy. Regulators had not yet mandated seatbelt use, and advertisers saw no reason to complicate their messaging with caution. Today, depicting a family driving unrestrained would never make it past a network standards review, and any automaker foolish enough to try would face public outrage and legal consequences almost immediately. Whiskey gift set ads for the man who has everything positioned hard liquor as the ultimate expression of holiday generosity between men. These commercials showed elegant decanters, crystal glasses, and richly packaged bottles, presented as prestigious tokens of respect. The messaging implied that real men appreciated fine whiskey, and gifting it demonstrated sophistication and taste. Holiday versions leaned heavily into imagery of crackling fires, leather armchairs, and cigars, painting a picture of refined celebration reserved for men of distinction. Nobody questioned whether normalizing alcohol as a default gift might encourage overconsumption. Voiceovers described flavor profiles with reverence, treating each sip as an experience worth savoring. Women appeared only as servers or admirers, reinforcing the idea that whiskey culture belonged entirely to men. Today, running ads that glorify hard liquor gifting while excluding women and ignoring alcohol-related health concerns would draw criticism from regulators, health advocates, and audiences increasingly aware of how such messaging shapes behavior and reinforces troubling assumptions about masculinity and indulgence. If any of these awkward 80s ads stirred a memory or made you cringe, tell us which shocked you most in the comments. Tap like to keep nostalgia coming, and subscribe so you never miss another trip into advertising history.